Hey guys, welcome to That Florida Feeling. I hope everybody's doing good. It's hot. It's really hot, but there's nothing going on in the Atlantic, which seems very strange. But I'm okay with it. I really hope for a quiet year, but it also makes me fear September and August. But hopefully it's a quiet year. Um, it's been a week. Uh, I I don't even know. Like we lost Ozzy, and then we lost Hulk Hogan. Um, I don't know. It's kind of sad. Um, if you live near Clearwater, I'm sure that you got to see Hulk Hogan a couple times. If you ever lived over there, his beach shop was over there. Um, I met Hulk Hogan a couple times. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, but if you were a wrestling fan, I will say undoubtedly Hulk Hogan was definitely big into. He was definitely huge for the wrestling world. He's probably the reason that wrestling stayed iconic for as long as it did. And then Ozzy, I hate that. I mean, that last show was great, and he was awesome. He's very iconic, and he went out in a very metal way with his last show. Uh, and then we lost, was it Malcolm Jamal Warner, the guy from The Cosby Show? It's just like a bad week, guys. Gosh. I guess they say death comes in threes. Um, I hope you guys are having a good week, though, other than being hot. Um, School's going to start here soon. Most places in my part of Florida, it starts August 11th, which seems like the summer went by really fast. It's very strange. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the summer just flew by. Although I feel like as you get older, everything just flies by. Or gravity takes over. Whichever one. Same thing, I guess. Hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode. Thank you to everybody who's been on the social media sites. You guys are simply awesome for that. I do appreciate all the support as always. It's great to always make new friends out of this. For those of you who say hi, for those of you who like the post, for those of you who post yourselves, I appreciate it. For those of you who posted about last week's episode, I appreciate the support on it. I really just wanted to update you guys on what was going on. I feel like there's a new update daily. So I figured I would address it, move on. There you go. This week we're going to talk about a very little town. Tiny, tiny, tiny little town. That for whatever reason seems to always make the list of worst places to live in Florida, ugliest places to live in Florida, poorest places to live in Florida, most illiterate places to live in Florida. And that is Pahokee. I have been to Pahokee because I was driving by Lake Okeechobee. But Pahokee is nothing special. It is just a very tiny town on the shores of Lake Okeechobee in South Florida. It is in Palm Beach County, Florida. It is actually part of the metropolitan Miami area, and it only has about 5,500 people living in it, so it's not big. Not big at all. And it got its name from the Creek language. It actually means grassy waters, which is kind of why it's in pretty much in the Everglades, which makes sense why its name means grassy waters. The local residents refer to Pahokee as the Muck, but that's because it's got a mineral-rich dark soil, which is why sugarcane, citrus fruits, and corn grow really well there. And in the 1930s, it was actually known as the winter vegetable capital of the world. Now, this city has seen things, lots of things. It was severely affected by the 1928 Okeechobee hurricane, Hurricane Wilma, and a couple other things that I'll tell you about. But Okeechobee, we're just going to talk Okeechobee, which actually I did do an episode on Lake Okeechobee. You can find it back in my previous episodes. But Pahokee, back to Pahokee. Pahokee was founded basically as a agricultural town. It was founded on a produce farm, basically as a produce farm, because they figured out that produce grew really well in that muck. Because it is basically fertile bottom of the Everglades after it was drained away. So part of the Everglades was drained in the early 20th century. By the way, I do also have an episode on the Everglades. You can hear it. But the earliest part of the Everglades was drained in the 20th century, that part of the Everglades. And in 1939, the Federal Writers Project said of Pahokee, from Christmas until April, Pahokee is a 24-hour town. Trains of refrigerated cars roll out from northern markets day and night. The streets are noisy and crowded. Bars and restaurants and gaming places never close. People are there and people are doing business. And that was true. Back then, the people were there to grow produce. The town was literally moving, and it was also kind of a winter town. Like, people were there to escape the cold because it's South Florida. South Florida does have its cold days, but it doesn't have its truly cold days. And then in 1963, with access to Cuban sugar being restricted, they built a sugar plant. They figured, why not? The soil's good, so they built a sugar plant. And the agriculture shifted kind of from corn to sugar. They did sugar cane. And that was really a big thing up until about 2009 when the plant closed. And that actually kind of hit the town hard. But Pahokee's always kind of existed or not existed. It's kind of one of those towns that's always just kind of barely scraped by. And it's really strange because there's two cities in Palm Bay County, Pahokee and South Bay, and they're on a list of 13 Florida municipalities in the state of Florida that's always in, or just in Palm Beach County, they're always in a state of financial emergency. Always. And Pahokee's been on this list for a very long time, since 1994. And that's because unemployment continuously exceeds 25%. Like, continuously. And taxable property values dropped from 99 million in 2007 to 66 million in 2014. A fifth of the population has just left in the last 15 years. And they have proposed to dissolve the city numerous times. And so it's just very strange because the city has somehow stayed afloat, but nobody really knows how. Nobody can figure out where the money is coming from or where the money goes or how these people are existing. But somehow Pahokee still exists. Now, Pahokee does have some good qualities. I mean, it does have some older buildings. The Pahokee High School building was built in 1928, I guess, like right after the hurricane. Somehow still exists, and it was put on the U.S. National Register of Historic Places as of November 15th, 1996. It's actually a really beautiful old building, amazing architecture. I'll post a picture of it on Instagram for you guys to see. There is a medical center. The Everglades Regional Medical Center was founded in 1936. The building it's in now was opened in 1950. It's a 63-bed hospital. It's been opened and closed several times. There's been many lawsuits. It's gone from public to private ownership. It's currently closed, apparently. I've looked it up. It says it's open, it's closed, it's open, it's closed. Apparently it's closed currently. There's also a nursing facility now that's open. It's a very strange city. Like, when you drive through Pahokee, you're not sure if you're supposed to be there. You're not sure if anyone is there. But it's really strange because there's also a bunch of schools. There's like 5 elementary schools. There's a charter school, a public charter school. There's 3 private schools. It's so strange. And, Pahokee's been talked about many times. Back in 2009, the Miami bureau chief actually wrote an article talking about Pahokee's economic plight. And it's never really come out of that. And the biggest thing they had was that they did build a new marina back in 2009. And it did kind of help the economy a little bit, And in 2014, when Rick Scott was still governor, he pledged 1.3 million to the restoration of their infrastructure. But it's like Pahokee's just never come back from the Okeechobee hurricane, and it's so strange. But it somehow just kind of stays afloat. I don't really know how else to describe Pahokee, but everybody's really nice there. Like everybody you meet is really, really nice there. Um, in fact, there was actually a full length film about it at the Sundance Film Festival back in 2019 called Pahokee. And if you get the chance to watch it, definitely watch it if you can find it. The description of it is it's a rural town of Pahokee. 4 teenagers experience the joys and heartbreaks of their last years in high school. This tightly knit community in the Florida Everglades struggles with financial insecurity and pins their hopes on future of graduating seniors. And they did show it on PBS in the series America Reframed. And I got to see it. It's a really, really cool film. And it paints Pahokee in another light. And it's a really interesting film. And then there was another one, Out of the Muck, from 2023. And it's talking actually about, kind of the people that came out of Pahokee. And it's, the description on it is wade into the rich soils of Pahokee, Florida, a town on the banks of Lake Okeechobee. Beyond its football legacy, sending over a dozen players into the NFL. And yes, that's actually true. So many people have come out of Pahokee to play in the NFL. Anquan Bolden, Fred Taylor, and Ricky Jackson are just a few of them. It's a fiercely self-determined community, and they tell their story of Black achievement and the resilience in the face of tragic storms and personal trauma. And that's what I mean. Pahokee is this town that somehow continues to survive. I don't know how. And like I said, it's a tiny town. It sits right on the banks of Lake Okeechobee. It has a scenic trail. It's beautiful, but nobody knows how it stays afloat. It's so strange. And then Lake Okeechobee has something strange. Lake Okeechobee, or not Lake Okeechobee. I always want to say it's Lake Okeechobee. Pahokee has something 3 miles east of it called Miracle Village. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Miracle Village. It used to be, or it's technically now called City of Refuge. And the City of Refuge, or Miracle Village, is about 3 miles east of Pahokee. And this serves as a haven for registered sex offenders. Now, this, though, is actually located in one of the most isolated and poorest parts of Palm Beach County. This site was chosen because of the isolation that would give registered sex offenders a residence where, they wouldn't be restricted to within 50 feet of this or 150 feet of that, or when, and it's kind of like it gave them new freedom without being judged. And I'll tell you where it came from. So it's a complex of 54 duplexes and 6 family homes, and it's operated by Matthew 25 Ministries. And Matthew 25 Ministries is an international humanitarian aid and disaster relief organization that's out of Ohio. And the organization actually stated that this goal was to provide prison aftercare. And the executive director in 2017 was Ted Rodarm, and he is actually an ex-offender himself. In October of 2010, the community included 66 actual registered sex offenders. By July of 2013, there was 100. By 2017, there was 120. Its total population of 2018 that included family members was 200. It is currently the largest community of registered sex offenders in the United States. There is an additional 300 who have resided there total, but since moved on. So, an affiliated organization, Miracle Village Ministries, also provides services including transportation to newly released prisoners, and it describes itself on the website as a faith-based prison aftercare ministry. Previously, this complex was known as Pelican Lake, and it was built by U.S. Sugar in 1964 as housing for migrant workers. So it used to actually be where the migrant workers would come and work the sugarcane fields that surrounded parts of Lake Okeechobee due to the great soil that I mentioned a second ago about kind of how Pahokee got its where it was founded. But it's they since kind of moved on from that, and they worked out a deal with Matthew 25 Ministries to lease the property, and the owner, Alston Management Inc., informed residents with school-aged children that they needed to leave or they would be evicted. I'm sure they didn't tell them why. Now, federal law prohibits discrimination against families with children, except in certain cases, such as communities for the elderly. Withrow was sued by Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County and Florida Equal Justice Center on behalf of a couple of the residents because of that reason. In 2011, federal judge found Matthew 25 Ministries and Alston Management had violated the Federal Fair Housing Act based on that. But if I had kids and I found out that that was what was going to happen there, I probably would have willingly left anyways. Now, does the City of Refuge have a relationship with Pahokee? Honestly, it started out kind of difficult. Because, I mean, let's face it, if you're living in Pahokee and you heard that basically a town of sex offenders is going to pop up 3 miles from you, you'd probably be a little upset. I mean, you'd probably be a little concerned too. But it's improved. It's improved drastically. So Pat Powers, a resident and the village manager, actually approached City Council in Pahokee. The first day he went there, apparently it was bad, and he's quoted as saying that they acted like they were the plague, and that they wanted to, they just wanted them to leave. They actually got the police to escort us out. They didn't want them there, and so apparently things have improved greatly. Now the mayor in 2009 of Pahokee had stated that he was actually unaware that offenders were being recruited to live in the City of Refuge. He felt that it was risky, but nothing's happened. So, I think it's kind of one of those very, very delicate balances. Now, the City of Refuge has been covered in the media a little bit. There's been, some stuff done on it. Banished did a 15-minute video on it. I found it on YouTube. And it actually has a Pahokee pastor on there who actually has worked with the people in Pahokee to accept the sex offenders and understand that, they have done their time. They are sorry for what they've done and get them to be accepted in the community. There's another one that's called from the New York Times OpDoc, which was from 2013, which kind of actually focuses on the opposite, which focuses on the problems that the residents actually have in it, and a lot of the residents were reviewed, and it was called Sex Offender Village. The one that I liked, though, that I saw about this was the BBC actually did it. It was about an hour. It was back from 2018, and it's called Second Chance Sex Offenders. And it talks about the place. And, they interviewed some officials about from Pahokee, talking about like how they felt about it. They also interviewed, people who understood the issues. They also talked about, Florida's sex offender policies, because Florida does have some of the toughest policies in the nation. And, my interesting thing from that was that a lot of some people believe that sex offenders can never be rehabilitated. And, you know, she also went to Miracle Village or City of Refuge, and she talked about it, and um, went and talked to the people there and saw how they felt, and kind of got their view on it. And, you know, it was very interesting because it gave both sides of the story, which I thought that was really, really cool. That, you know, it was very interesting to get both sides of the story. You know, it was nice that they were that she did get both sides of the story. She got the people in Florida who don't want them there from both the law enforcement and the, you know, government side of it. And then she also went to Miracle Village and talked to them about how they felt about everything. And so I thought that was really good journalism on that part. But it's on the BBC. Another one you can probably find on YouTube. I did find it on YouTube actually. So you can look that up. It's called Second Chance Sex Offenders. Just careful searching that one. Another one that was very interesting was in 2014, Sophia Valente, who lived in Belglade, which is actually also not far from Pahokee. It's on the shores of Lake Okeechobee. Actually published a book called Miracle Village. It's an unpaged book. It contains pictures of Miracle Village, City of Refuge, with just the sex offender residents. And it gave an introduction describing what it was like to be picked up at the prison gate and then driven into the town. And it also has 11 handwritten statements by the people and a Dear John letter from an offender's wife saying that they wanted a divorce. And it was kind of powerful, actually. And Valente said, it's not just a documentary record of a shunned community, but it's an argument for understanding rehabilitation, earning forgiveness, and finding a place. And I thought that was very, very interesting. You know, that there are people out there who do want to understand, who obviously do want to forgive, you know, and there are obviously two sides to every coin. As a parent, I don't know how I would feel. As a Christian, I know we're supposed to forgive. Living that close, I really don't know how I would feel. So I can see how the residents of Pahokee were not happy to hear about that at all, whatsoever. Not the greatest thing in the world. So I see how and why they were very upset. You know, I could see why they were mad about that. I really do. I don't know that I'd be happy. So now, like I said, Pahokee has always struggled to really exist from the beginning. And I don't know that it ever really got its start because it really was incorporated in 1922. And right off the bat, it really got hit hard with that hurricane. The Okeechobee hurricane in 1928. So it was only a town for 6 years. And the Okeechobee hurricane was devastating. I do talk about it in one of my hurricane episodes. I'll give you a brief overview, and this is probably going to tell you why the town never really recovered. So first and foremost, leading up to the hurricane, there's a wet season in Florida. If you live in Florida, you know this. If you don't, there's a wet season in Florida. And previous to the hurricane hitting, there was heavy rainfall in the weeks prior, and now the lake is regulated, like its levels, but back then it wasn't. And so before the lake was regulated and this heavy rainfall had come, the lake was already probably 3 feet higher than it should have been. So all the canals, all the ditches, anything in the Everglades is already full. The water has saturated the ground. It's not going to take anymore. So this is already really a flooded situation. And then here comes this storm. And the worst part about this storm is that they gave out this storm warning. So they gave the storm warning for the people to leave. Well, the people left. The people did leave. That's the thing. People evacuated Lake Okeechobee. And when they evacuated, they did evacuate. Um, but they came back. And they came back too soon. They didn't realize that it did not, they thought it had already hit. They didn't know that it hadn't hit yet by the time they came back. And that's the problem. And so when it hit hard. And I mean, category 4 hard. It slammed into Palm Beach County, right about West Palm Beach. Cat 4, just hard. It still ranks as one of the top 10 in strongest to hit the state of Florida as of 2024. You know, it still ranks right up there with Andrew and Michael and Ian and Helene that just hit. This is a huge hurricane. And, you know, the people did leave, but they came back because they thought it already hit. And that's why there was 2,500 fatalities. And I mean, it just flooded the area of Pahokee. The entire Okeechobee region got flooded. And it was also that it wasn't that it was a Cat 4, but it was intense. Like, it ranks as number 5 out of 10 on the barometric pressure to hit Florida, still as of 2024. It still ranks in these massive hurricanes. It's still going to be on that list, probably for a very long time, if not for forever. And the other problem is that for a very long time when they were predicting this storm, they thought it was going to miss South Florida. And then they finally said leave, and people left. And then they came back, and then the storm hit. And that's, today we have all these, you can almost tell to the moment when this storm is going to hit. Back then they couldn't do that. They didn't, we didn't have TVs. They barely kind of had radios. It wasn't a thing. And so when the storm hit Palm Beach and came across, the hurricane didn't arrive on schedule. People thought they missed it. They came back, and then it hit. And it crossed over the lake, and it, between the winds and the storm surge and everything, breached the canals, the dikes, the lake, the flooding. It reached over 20 feet outside of the lake in some areas, and it just took everything with it. Buildings, houses, animals, people. It took people all the way through the Everglades. Bodies were never recovered. Every structure was basically impacted. All crops were wiped out. All crops. And it was, it was devastating. It really, really was, like, truly, truly devastating. Pahokee, Bowblade, a lot of that was the area that took probably the most damage. Like, the aftermath of Pahokee doesn't, and the city of Okeechobee doesn't look like a city. It doesn't. It just looks like somebody just took matchsticks and broke them everywhere. It's awful. And the city of Pahokee actually kind of sits on a ridge, or a ridge for Florida. It kind of sits a little bit above it, and it was just bad. Like, everything was swept away. And a lot of the deaths occurred in Pahokee was because of the storm surge. 75% of Pahokee was destroyed, not damaged, just destroyed, just gone. The bank and the schoolhouse, that schoolhouse that I told you, that the one school that's on the National Register, that was part of it that stayed. Those were the only 2 buildings left standing in any kind of condition. Out of Pahokee, out of all the people that live there, if you count between Pahokee and Pelican Bay, which is where City of Refuge actually is now, there was probably 600 deaths. And it was even reported that basically there was no village of Pelican Bay after that. So, to put it nicely, Pahokee was founded in 1922 and it was wiped out 6 years later. Um, and it took weeks, and I mean weeks, for for the floodwaters to even recede, because the Everglades, is basically a big moving river. So they couldn't even clean up. Um, they couldn't clean up for a very long time. They reported for over almost a month 2 feet of standing water in Belglade, Okeechobee, South Bay, and Pahokee. So it, you know, it didn't stand a chance really from when it started. And you know, I don't know if that had something to do with it. It just seems like such a town that keeps fighting to stay alive, and it just kind of keeps just not being able to win. Like I said, it's a really pretty town. They have a really, really pretty little walkway around Lake Okeechobee. It's scenic. It's beautiful. You know, beautiful old buildings with the schoolhouse. Um, nice people. Nice people when I drove through it and had to stop for something. But, they're just not winning somehow. Um, I just don't. Nobody really understands how they're still in financial crisis. It, it's just so strange. Um, it's like you kind of feel for them. You really, really feel for them. It's so I don't know. Like I don't know. That whole area just never feels like it got a good fair start. I don't know. Like I would love to say go visit, but there's not really anything to visit down there. Um, go to Lake Okeechobee. Definitely go to Lake Okeechobee, the actual lake. It's beautiful. Drive through Pahokee just to see it. But I don't know. I just hopefully one day Pahokee gets its fair shot before it doesn't become a city anymore. Cause yeah, you'll meet some really nice people. You will. You'll eat some really good food because I was looking and there's something called Papa Jimmy's Catfish and More, and I don't know anything with Southern cooking and catfish. I gotta at least give it a try. Like that kind of sounds good. And there's another fish place, and I mean it's right off Lake Okeechobee, so I gotta believe it's pretty fresh fish. You know, I gotta believe that. I gotta believe I'd give it a try. So I got nice people, good catfish, at least fish. Probably gonna run into Florida man. Yeah. Yeah, Florida man. This Florida man's actually out of Okeechobee, the town of Okeechobee, Florida. And was dubbed the Nail Bandit. Yeah, he faces criminal charges after Florida deputies say he repeatedly used sharp objects to damage fire rescue vehicles for more than a year and a half. They even had to launch Operation Nail Bandit to catch him. According to Okeechobee County Sheriff's Office, investigators noticed a pattern of someone intentionally throwing sharp objects, including nails, modified wire wheels, and other objects, behind fire rescue vehicles and emergency access points. Detectives conducted weeks of surveillance, according to Sheriff's Office, and caught 72-year-old John Starnes in the act early one morning. Deputies pulled him over, at which point they say he confessed to sabotaging emergency vehicles numerous times for over 2 years. Apparently, he had a beef with them, and he was going to handle the situation himself. He faces multiple felony charges. I love that they named him the Nail Bandit, and that he had a beef with them. Who knows what they did to him? But I applaud the 72-year-old man for taking action. I do. Obviously, don't do that. But, I mean, he took it into his own hands, and he got a cool name out of it. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed hearing about a little town that has survived ever since basically its beginning, from a very horrible hurricane to where it is now. Somehow it's still staying afloat, literally, and surviving. If you guys have any suggestions about what you want to hear about Florida, or if you want to learn about something, hear about something, let me know. I love getting suggestions from you guys. I love seeing you guys on social media. Just let me know. Don't forget to check out Unfiltered Studios. It is the network I'm a part of. There are some great people doing awesome things over there. I hope you guys do have a great week. Stay cool. It is very warm. We are in the worst part of summer. Drink your water because you're going to get dehydrated. Wear your sunscreen because if you're like me, you're going to get sunburned. If you're going somewhere fun, I hope you guys have a great time. If not, I'll see you back next week for another episode. All right, guys, as always, that's your daily dose of sunshine.
This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.